Enhancing accessibility of Excel spreadsheets. Introduction. Excel is a commonly used spreadsheet program. We may make good use of Excel in many teaching and learning and research activities, such as project management, performing calculations, organizing data, conducting data analysis, and presenting data. Accessible spreadsheets essentially concern about workbook setup, worksheets layout design, data presentation, and file saving and sharing. Spreadsheets that are accessible would enable users of assistive technologies such as screen readers to process the information easily and logically. Accessible spreadsheets are easier to follow and ultimately benefit all users. In this video, we will first briefly go through the Excel interface and some of the relevant terms to facilitate our understanding of the subsequent topics. Then, we will cover 10 themes of essential tips that would make Excel spreadsheets more accessible, including workbook setup, text content in cells, hyperlinks, graphical content, table formatting, charts formatting, worksheet layout, workbook wrap-up, accessibility check, and file saving and sharing. We will use Microsoft Excel for Mac version 16.75 for illustration. The set of commands may be different across different spreadsheet editing programs or computer systems, but the general idea would still apply. It is important to note that software and computer programs are constantly and rapidly developing along with changing accessibility functions. Statements in this video about the accessibility-related functions of the programs and operating systems may no longer represent their current status. Please also keep in mind that the suggested practices mentioned in this video are not exhaustive and do not guarantee full accessibility. We should always consider diverse needs of users. We also encourage you to refer to our toolkit to further explore accessibility for spreadsheets. You may also download the cheat sheets of document accessibility for handy reference. Navigating Excel interface and terms. In this video, we will briefly go through some important terms about the Excel program interface and files. This would help you understand the subsequent sections. Let's begin. According to the Microsoft Excel Glossary, Workbook is a spreadsheet program file that you create in Excel. A workbook contains one or more worksheets of rows and columns in which you can enter, organize, calculate, analyze, and present data. At the bottom left corner of the Excel program workspace window, there are worksheet tabs. On the far right end of the worksheet tabs, there is a plus sign command for inserting new worksheet tab. The default name of each worksheet is Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3, and so on. According to the Microsoft Excel Glossary, Worksheet is the primary document that you use in Excel to store and work with the data. Worksheet is also called a spreadsheet. A worksheet is always stored in a workbook. A worksheet consists of grid of cells that are organized into columns and rows. Each column is labeled by a capitalized letter, starting from A, B, C, and so on. Each row is labeled by a number, starting from 1, 2, 3, and so on. We make use of these labels to create cell reference to refer to a specific cell or range of cells. Cell reference is formed by the column letter followed by the row number, such as cell A1. A range of cells is a block of two or more cells. A range reference is represented by the cell reference of the top left cell and the bottom right cell, separated with a colon. For example, the range D3:E8 includes 12 cells from D3 through E8. When we click on any cell within a worksheet, a bounding box appears. That cell appears having a colored border. This indicates this cell is selected, receives the focus, and it is called an active cell. On the screen, for example, the focus indicator is currently on cell B2. Cell B2 is now the active cell. You may also notice that the content of the active cell, that is student B in the current active cell, is displayed in the formula bar above the grid of cells. The cell reference B2 is shown in the name box as well. According to the Microsoft Excel Glossary, formula bar refers to the bar at the top of the Excel window that you use to enter or edit values or formulas in cells or charts. Formula bar displays the constant value or formula stored in the active cell. Name box is the box at left end of the formula bar that identifies the selected cell chart item, or drawing object. To name a cell or range, type the name in the name box and press Enter. To move to and select a named cell, click its name in the name box. For text and values in the grid of cells, the information is associated with the specific cell or range of cells. These cells can receive keyboard focus and become active cells. Therefore, they can be reached using the 4 arrow keys right, left, up, down on keyboard. Assistive technologies such as screen readers can read the information in the correct order and tell the location of that piece of information within the grid of cells. However, it is important to note that some items are known as floating objects. Examples are charts, images, and text boxes manually added to the worksheets. They are called floating because these items are not associated with any specific cell or range of cells. They are floating on top of the grid of cells. They cannot readily receive keyboard focus and become active items. Therefore, they cannot be reached using the 4 arrow keys right, left, up, down on keyboard. Assistive technologies such as screen readers cannot read the information in the correct order or tell the location of that piece of information within the grid of cells. If we want to navigate these floating items using keyboard, we need to switch to the floating object navigation mode. First, press the keyboard shortcut Ctrl plus Alternate plus 5. Then, press the Tab key to move between floating items. Press the Tab key to move between floating items. You may use the arrow keys. Use the Escape key to exit floating object navigation. After exiting the floating object navigation mode, you may use the arrow keys to move around the grid of cells again. Workbook setup. Regarding workbook setup, we would need to be aware of 3 things. Giving a descriptive name and title for the workbook. Giving a descriptive name for each worksheet tab. And starting information in cell A1 of each worksheet. Give a descriptive name and title for the workbook. The default name of the workbook is Book 1. Workbook name is also the file name that appears at the top and middle of the Excel program window. A descriptive file name can help users differentiate the target file. You may change the default workbook name to a descriptive name when saving the file. Go to File. Save As. Enter the file name in the Save As field. Moreover, this version of Excel allows users to change the file name directly by pressing the down arrow sign next to the file name that appears at the top and middle of the Excel program window. As for document title, it can be different from the file name. The workbook title can be a more descriptive version of the file name. It could facilitate users to identify and search the document. For example, a file name is Course Assessment Gradebook version 5_updated May 25, 2023. The workbook title could be Course Gradebook version 5. The workbook title is required if the workbook will be exported to PDF. It could enable the PDF converted from Excel document display the document title in the PDF window. If users open multiple PDF files at the same time, the descriptive title of each document can help users differentiate and browse between the different PDF files. To edit the workbook title, go to File, Properties, select Summary in the Properties dialog box. Edit the file information in the corresponding fields. Add in the title text. Enter a descriptive document title in the title field. Select OK. Give a descriptive name for each worksheet tab. Each worksheet in Excel has the default name Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3 and so on by default. They may be confusing to users. It is important to provide a brief, unique, and descriptive name for each worksheet tab. The names should give users sufficient information about the content and purpose of the worksheet. It should enable users to easily differentiate and quickly locate the worksheet in the workbook. To rename the worksheet, double-click the Worksheet tab. Then, input the descriptive name. Press Enter. Or, right-click the Worksheet tab. Select Rename from the pop-up menu. Then, input the descriptive name. Press Enter. Note that Worksheet tab names must not be either of the following format. The Worksheet tab names must not be blank names. Worksheet tab names must not be more than 31 characters. Worksheet tab names must not contain special characters including colon, slash, backslash, question mark, asterisk, and left and right square brackets, begin or end with an apostrophe. And worksheet tab names must not be history, as this word is reserved by Excel program. Start information in cell A1 of each worksheet. Screen readers users would generally navigate each worksheet starting from cell A1, then cell by cell. Always start information in cell A1 of worksheet 1. In subsequent worksheets, also start information in cell A1. Then, screen reader users can immediately begin reading the content in that worksheet. Text content in cells. Regarding text formatting, we would need to be aware of 7 things. Avoiding adding text boxes manually. Using text alignment tools to reposition the cell content. Adjusting column width to display text properly. Ensuring sufficient color contrast between the text and background. Using appropriate font size and punctuation. Avoiding using all caps or small caps for the text. And sans serif fonts are preferred to serif fonts. Avoid adding text boxes manually. As we mentioned before, text boxes that are manually added to worksheets are not associated with any specific cells. They are like floating items on the worksheet. They would create barriers to assistive technologies. Therefore, whenever possible, write the text information in the cells directly. Use text alignment tools to reposition the cell content. Do not align the text manually by pressing spacebar to create white space, or by creating merged or split cells. While this may create a visual appearance of realigned text, screen readers would read these multiple empty spaces as blank. Multiple empty spaces means that users of screen readers would keep listening blank. It can be very annoying and confusing to the users. Merged or split cells would also create barriers to assistive technologies. It is suggested to make use of the Excel's built-in commands for text alignment, orientation, indentation, and wrapping in the Home tab to adjust the position of text in a cell. However, avoid using the orientation command to rotate the text particular angles. Screen reader users and magnifier users might be unable to access the rotated text. Adjust column width to display text properly. Sometimes, if the column width is too narrow, the content in that column might display as a series of hashtag symbols instead of the original text. Adjust the column width to fit the length of the text content to make it visible properly. Otherwise, those hashtags would cause confusion to readers. We may also adjust row height or column width to create sufficient white space around the text in cells between adjacent rows and columns to avoid cluttering. Cluttered text might be difficult for all readers to understand, particularly magnifier users, some people with visual impairment, reading disabilities, and/or dyslexia. Ensure sufficient color contrast between the text and background. Make sure to check color contrast. Content with sufficient color contrast is easier for everyone to read. Content without sufficient color contrast would be inaccessible to many users, particularly people who are color blind, people with visual impairment, people viewing the spreadsheets through monitors in bright sunlight or glare, and people viewing the spreadsheets through a projector display in a well-lit venue. We may make use of software applications to check color contrast. There is a number of color contrast checkers that are free of charge. An example is the Color Contrast Analyzer from TPGI. Color contrast is checked against the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, using these checkers. Enter the colors of the cell background and foreground, that is the text, respectively. These checkers allow multiple methods of entering colors, such as the color picker tool, RGB color codes, or hex color codes. The color picker is particularly useful to users who are unfamiliar with color codes. Then, the checkers will tell whether this color combination would fulfill or fail the color contrast requirements based on the WCAG guidelines. If it fails, then it might suggest that we need to consider changing the color of either the background or the foreground colors, or both. Otherwise, this color combination might not be visually accessible to some readers. After we change the colors, redo the check until you get a combination that fulfills the accessibility requirement. Other examples of similar checkers are the Web AI Contrast Checker and the Adobe Color Contrast Analyzer. The Adobe Color Contrast Analyzer will also recommend colors that would give better contrast. And the Color Blind Safe Checker in the Adobe Color Contrast Analyzer can check whether the color theme or palette would be accessible for people with color blindness. Ensure sufficient color contrast between text and its associated cell background. Do not use color-on-color background in text, such as light blue text on dark blue background. Check whether the colored text and its associated cell background colors are properly displayed in grayscale. It is useful and important practice because some students may print out course materials as handouts in grayscale. For example, we may use Mac built-in color filter to check grayscale display. Go to Apple menu, System Preferences, Accessibility, Display. Select Color Filters. Select Enable Color Filters. Select Grayscale from the drop-down menu. Then the grayscale filter will be applied to the entire screen. For Windows built-in color filters, go to Start, Settings, Ease of Access, Color Filters. Switch on the toggle for color filters. Try selecting the other color filters from the drop-down menu to view the spreadsheets in simulated color blindness situations. Fix any parts in the spreadsheets that do not present the intended meanings under color filters. Use appropriate font size and punctuation. It is important to use appropriate font size. Appropriate font size can make the text more comfortable and easier to read. The font size should not be too small, especially if the spreadsheets will be presented by projector. Larger fonts would be more accessible for people with visual impairment. It also helps students sitting at the far end of classrooms or lecture halls. Be aware of punctuation that visually looks similar but symbolize different meanings. Otherwise, it would make it difficult for users of assistive technologies such as screen readers to understand the content. For example, be aware of the differences between the marks of inches, feet, apostrophe, and quotation marks. Use the marks of smart quotes as the quotation marks. Do not use the marks of straight quotes as the quotation marks. Be aware that some punctuation may not be read out by screen readers. For example, 8-9 p.m. may simply be read as 8-9 p.m. It is suggested to use text to present important information, if possible, such as 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Avoid using all caps or small caps for the text. Capitalizing all text is difficult for most people to read. Text with all caps or small caps may show no differences in the shapes of texts, and all the texts may visually appear like a single rectangle. It would particularly create barriers to some people with visual impairment and some people with reading disabilities. Sans serif fonts are preferred to serif fonts. Examples of serif fonts are Times New Roman, Courier, and Baskerville. Serif fonts have small lines at the edge that may hamper readability. Sans serif fonts do not have decorative lines at the edge. Examples of sans serif fonts are Arial, Calibri, and Verdana. They are generally preferred to serif fonts. Note that some fonts may not be available in every computer system. For example, Helvetica is a recommended sans serif font. It is available on Mac, but not on Windows. Be aware that Helvetica text may or may not display as Helvetica style in different computers as intended. Avoid only decorative fonts or light fonts. Some users, especially people with dyslexia, might find it hard to read decorative fonts and those whose letters are close to one another. Hyperlinks. Use descriptive link text for hyperlinks. It is common to make use of hyperlinks in Excel to jump to a particular item in the workbook easily. To link up the associated chart and data table located on different worksheets. To link to external resources. To present the contact email address. Users of assistive technologies such as screen readers users sometimes scan a list of hyperlinks in the document for effective navigation and understanding. Screen readers would read aloud link text to notify users that this is a hyperlink, such as link text, out of link. It is important the link text is concise and give relevant information of the action and destination of the hyperlinks. Avoid using cell reference, cell range, full URL, and/or vague link text such as read more information here, or click here to present the hyperlink. These link texts are non-descriptive link text. Screen readers would read it as link, read more, or link, click here, for example. It is confusing as it does not provide meaningful information of where or what the hyperlinks will take the users to, and when used out of context. Using the full URL as link text would make screen readers read aloud every single character of the URL, which can be confusing to the users. Embed the short URL, if possible, to keep the link text concise. For reference list items, the work's URL or DOI may be retained for users' information. The title of the work can be the link text under these situations. The difference between a reference list and the body content is that the reference list is not meant to be read from start to finish. The information in the reference list is only needed if users want more information about some specific references cited in the body content. Not every user would follow every link in a reference list. Sometimes, the materials may be printed out as hard copy. It is helpful to preserve the actual link address. Use concise link text. If the link text is too long, it may visually appear to break across separate lines. Some users may misunderstand there are several hyperlinks. A long link text may also hinder understanding. Add remarks in a bracket to indicate it will open in new browser tab. If the hyperlink downloads a file, indicate the file type and file size in link text. Use the full email address as the link text. It clearly shows the hyperlink opens email instead of web pages or documents. Other link texts such as contact the project team or email us do not indicate that this hyperlink is an email address. To insert hyperlinks and link text, select the cell where you want to insert the hyperlink. Go to Insert, Link. The Insert Hyperlink dialog pane opens. Or, right-click on the cell and select Hyperlink from the shortcut menu to open the Insert Hyperlink dialog pane. Input the descriptive link text in the Text to Display field in the dialog pane. Depending on the cell content to be linked to, you may select web pages or files, this document, or email address. Select the This Document tab for linking to content items within the workbook. Enter the cell reference or select the location of that item within the workbook. For web pages or files, or email address, select the corresponding tabs and enter the full URL in the address, or enter the email address accordingly. Then, select OK. Avoid using the same link text for different hyperlinks within the same workbook. Use unique link text for each hyperlink. Avoid using different link texts for the same hyperlinks within the same workbook. Again, use unique link text for each hyperlink. In general, the look of the link text should be visually different from other non-linked text in the workbook. Usually, the link text is underlined and in blue. It would be inaccessible to use color alone to indicate link text. It would create barriers to some users such as people with color blindness. At the same time, ensure sufficient color contrast between the link text and its surrounding body text. Also ensure the colors of the not yet visited hyperlinks and visited hyperlinks show sufficient contrast against the background colors, respectively. An example of online checker for link text is the WebAIM link contrast checker. Color contrast is checked against the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, using these checkers. Enter the colors of the link color, body text color, and background color, respectively. The checker allows multiple methods of entering colors, such as the color picker tool, RGB color codes, or hex color codes. The color picker is particularly useful to users who are unfamiliar with color codes. Then, the checker will tell whether this color combination would fulfill or fail the color contrast requirements based on the WCAG guidelines. If it fails, then it might suggest that we need to consider changing the color of either the link color, body text color, or background color. Otherwise, this color combination might not be visually accessible to some readers. After we change the colors, redo the check until you get a combination that fulfills the accessibility requirement. To change the colors and other formatting of the link text and visited link text, go to the Cell Styles command in the ribbon. Right-click on the Hyperlink command from the drop-down menu for formatting the link text. Or, right-click on the followed Hyperlink command from the drop-down menu to format the visited link text. Then, select Modify from the shortcut menu to open the Modify Cell Style dialog pane. Select Format to further open the Format Cells dialog pane, where you can modify the color, font size, etc. Finally, select OK. Graphical content. Provide alternative text for graphical content. Examples of graphical content include charts and graphs, as well as pictures, shapes, icons, 3D models, smart art, and screenshots. Graphical content require alternative text, alt text, to enable assistive technologies to understand the graphical content. Alt text concisely describes the content and the purposes of the graphical content in brief phrases or 1 to 2 sentences. When screen readers recognize an image with alternative text, screen readers will read image or graphic to notify users and read out the associated alternative text. Screen reader demo.
Excel. Course Assessment Gradbook version 5 updated the 25th of May 2023. The access for hearing loss symbol. A graphic of an ear with a thick diagonal line crossing through it between the top right corner and the bottom left corner. A capital letter T at the bottom right corner of the ear graphic image.
End of screen reader demo. Sighted users generally do not see the alt text. However, when images do not load successfully and/or the browsers block images by default, alt text of that image may display to let users know what the image is about. Sighted users may also see the alt text under this situation even if they are not using assistive technologies. To insert alternative text, select the graphical content, go to the Picture Format tab to open the alt text pane for inputting the alternative text. Or, select and right-click on the graphical content, then, select View Alt Text from the shortcut menu to open the alt text pane for inputting the alternative text. Sometimes, a description is auto-generated but it might not be accurate. Remove this auto-generated description and input your own alternative text. Graphical content that are purely for visual decorative purposes, for formatting purposes, such as stylistic borders, repetitively used, or do not provide meaningful information do not require alt text. Mark the item as decorative. This would hide the image from screen readers. Screen readers will not read aloud this image. Note that if you leave the alt text entry field empty and do not mark this graphics as decorative in the alt text pane, screen readers may read aloud as image or graphic. The users would not know whether this graphical content is informative or decorative. This may confuse the users. Here are some tips for drafting the alt text. In general, no need to begin with phrases such as picture of or image of. Only include the informative text embedded within the graphical content in the alt text. Use punctuation such as periods to end the alt text. Otherwise, screen readers may mix up the alt text and the main body text that follows. It may confuse the users. Be aware that hyperlinks in the alt text cannot be activated or presented by link text. For descriptions of complex graphical content like charts and graphs, it is recommended to consider providing a detailed and lengthy description as captions as well. It would help every user understand complex graphical content, not only assistive technology users. Input the captions directly in specific cells instead of text boxes that are manually added to the workbook. Text boxes are floating objects as they are not associated with any specific cells. They cannot be reached using the arrow keys on keyboard. Assistive technologies cannot tell that its location in the grid of cells. Moreover, you may use the alt text to refer assistive technology users to the caption. Do not repeat the captions in the alternative text. Otherwise, screen readers will read the same information twice. It would confuse the users. Before closing this section, on the screen now, you will find reference materials about how to describe complex images, such as those related to art, chemistry, mathematics, flowcharts, geographical maps, and tables. You may also refer to the text version of the reference list below the video player on the web page. Table formatting. Regarding accessible formatting of table, we would need to be aware of 12 things. Using Excel's built-in functionality to format tables. Always specifying the headers of a table. Giving a descriptive title for the table. Giving unique and informative name for each table. Defining names for column and row headers, cells, and cell ranges. Avoiding merged cells, nested cells, or split cells. Indicating cells that are intentionally left blank. Adjusting row height or column width to achieve formatting. Using text alignment tools to reposition the cell content. Providing alternative text, alt text, for tables. Ensuring sufficient color contrast. And lastly, not using color as the sole visual cue. Use Excel's built-in functionality to format tables. Each worksheet visually appears like a large table with columns and rows by default. It is common to make use of manual formatting, such as borders line, color, font sizes, to create visual appearance of a table for data presentation. However, this visual appearance of such a table cannot be recognized by assistive technologies such as screen readers. It is important to format the specific range of cells as table using built-in formatting commands instead of manual formatting, such that assistive technologies such as screen readers can identify this cell range as truly a table. To format a table, first, be sure there is a header row and/or a header column for the table. Then, select and highlight the range of contiguous cells containing the data concerned, including the header row and/or the header column. No need to include the cells containing the table title. Go to the Home tab. Select Format as Table. Choose the preferred table style. It is suggested to choose the table style with sufficient color contrast. You may also check the color contrast of the table design and modify the colors later. After choosing the preferred table style, the Format as Table dialog pane opens. Check whether the cell range shown in the field of "Where is the data for your table?" in the Format as Table dialog pane correctly corresponds to your selected cell range. If the cell range is wrong, fix it. Check the option, "My table has headers," in the dialog if your table has headers. Select OK. Always specify the headers of a table. A table should have the header row and the column header that meaningfully describe the corresponding data. Sighted users may be able to identify row and column headers based on the visual presentation of the table. However, the header information is necessary for assistive technologies, such as screen readers, to identify columns and rows. Screen readers count and read aloud the number of columns and rows. Then, screen readers can read the information in each cell one by one, from left to right, and from the top to the bottom. Therefore, when formatting a table, we should always specify the headers of the table. To specify header row, highlight the header row of the table. Go to Table Design tab. Check the option, Header Row. The first row, that is the header row, should be the column header. In this example, the first column is also the row header. So we check the option, First Column, as well. Specifying the headers will apply bold formatting to the text content in the cells of these specified headers. Do not specify header row by manually formatting the cells and texts of the first row, example, using bold and larger text. While it may create a visual appearance of header, screen readers cannot identify it as truly a header. Give a descriptive title for the table. A descriptive title can help users identify and get a quick idea of each table content. It can facilitate content navigation and understanding. We may center the table title corresponding to the table width. It may visually help users to identify each table. With proper formatting, centering the table title may also let assistive technologies know that this title corresponds to a table with a specific number of columns. To center the title, select and highlight the title row, including the cells that correspond to the table width. Then, go to Home tab, select Merge and Center. Select the Merge and Center from the drop-down menu. Do not center the title text manually by pressing spacebar to create white space. While this may create a visual appearance of centered text, screen readers would read these multiple empty spaces as blank. Multiple empty spaces means that users of screen readers would keep listening blank. It can be very annoying and confusing to the users. It is suggested to make use of the Excel's built-in commands for merge and center. Give unique and informative name for each table. Each formatted table is named Table 1, Table 2, and so on by default in the order the tables are created. The names of all the formatted tables are shown in the name box near the formula bar. Selecting any table from the drop-down list from the name box can automatically jump to that table, regardless of its location across the worksheets. If there are many tables in the file, the default names such as Table 1 and Table 2 might not be informative enough to let users differentiate and refer to a particular table quickly. Therefore, after formatting a table, give a unique and informative name for each formatted table. These unique table names could help screen reader users identify and locate each table more easily. Unique table names are important and can help all readers locate the tables more easily. To rename a formatted table, select any cell within the formatted table. Go to the Table tab, then Table Name. Enter the new name in the field of Table Name. Note that the table name should be unique and descriptive. Do not use cell range references to be the table name. Do not include a space in the table name. And the table name should not duplicate other existing names in the workbook. Define names for column and row headers, cells, and cell ranges. The default names of each row header, column header, cells, and cell ranges are simply the cell location references. They might be difficult to recognize and understand. It is important to give a brief and descriptive name for each column header, row header, cells, and cell ranges. It can greatly help screen reader users identify what the rows and columns are about, especially when there are many data and complicated tables in the workbook. All defined names would appear in the drop-down list in the name box near the formula bar. Users can select any name from this drop-down list from the name box and automatically jump to that table, cell, or cell ranges, regardless of its location across the worksheets. Overall, it can help all users to understand and navigate the information in the workbook. To define name for specific cell or cell ranges, select and highlight the specific cell or range of contiguous cells. Go to Formulas tab, Define Name. The new name pane opens. Enter the desired name for this cell or cell range in the name field in the pane. Check whether the cell location references in the Refers to field correspond to your selected cell or cell ranges correctly. Fix it if needed. Select OK. To edit several cells or cell ranges altogether, go to Formulas, Name Manager. Edit the information as needed. Note that the defined names should be unique and descriptive. Do not use cell range references to be the names. Do not include a space in the names. And the names should not duplicate other existing names in the workbook. Avoid merged cells, nested cells, or split cells. Use simple tables whenever possible. Screen readers count the number of columns and rows to locate the header information. Screen readers read the information in each cell one by one from left to right, and from the top to the bottom. Avoid merged cells, nested cells, split cells, or multiple headings. These designs make screen readers lose count of the number of rows and columns. It makes screen readers difficult to keep track of their locations in the worksheet. They could not recognize the data cell by cell properly and cannot read out meaningful information from the table. However, it is generally acceptable to have merged cells for the table title. Indicate cells that are intentionally left blank. It is recommended to avoid blank cells. Blank cells can be confusing to assistive technologies. It is recommended to use some text or symbols to clearly indicate cells that are intentionally left blank. It let all users, whether using assistive technologies or not, know whether the blank cells are intentionally left blank or accidentally missing data. It is also a recommended practice of data cleaning in conducting research. Examples of text that may be used are no data, intentionally blank, not applicable, missing data. If you want to use symbols, be aware that whether those symbols are in general accessible to assistive technologies. If you include the blank cells on purpose, you may mention the purpose in the alt text of the table or the body text to let screen readers understand it. Adjust row height or column width to achieve formatting. Sometimes, if the column width is too narrow, the content in that column might display as a series of hashtag symbols instead of the original text. Adjust the column width to fit the length of the text content to make it visible properly. Otherwise, those hashtags would cause confusion to readers. We may also adjust row height or column width to create sufficient white space around the text in cells between adjacent rows and columns to avoid cluttering. Cluttered text might be difficult for all readers to understand, particularly magnifier users, some people with visual impairment, reading disabilities, and/or dyslexia. Do not use blank columns or rows for visual formatting. Use text alignment tools to reposition the cell content. Do not align the text manually by pressing spacebar to create white space, or by creating merged or split cells. While this may create a visual appearance of realigned text, screen readers would read these multiple empty spaces as blank. Multiple empty spaces means that users of screen readers would keep listening blank. It can be very annoying and confusing to the users. Merged or split cells would also create barriers to assistive technologies. It is suggested to make use of the Excel's built-in commands for text alignment, orientation, indentation, and wrapping in the Home tab to adjust the position of text in a cell. However, avoid using the orientation command to rotate the text particular angles. Screen reader users and magnifier users might be unable to access the rotated text. Provide alternative text, alt text, for tables. The following is an example of alt text of a table. A table with 4 columns and 5 rows listing the full score, weighting, and the requirement of group work of the 4 types of assessment tasks. The following is an example showing how the built-in screen reader in Mac, that is VoiceOver, would read aloud the alt text of a table. Screen reader demo.
Table 12. A3 to D7, selected. A table with 4 columns and 5 rows listing the full score, weighting, and the requirement of group work of the 4 types of assessment tasks.
End of screen reader demo. To insert alt text of a table, select and right-click on the table, select Table, from the shortcut menu. Then, further select Alternative Text from the second-level shortcut menu to open the alternative text pane. Input the alt text of the table in the description field. Select OK. Here are some tips for drafting the alt text. Use punctuation such as periods to end the alt text. Otherwise, screen readers may mix up the alt text and the content in the worksheet that follows. It may confuse the users. Be aware that hyperlinks in the alt text cannot be activated or presented by link text. Do not write detailed and lengthy description of tables as alt text. Provide the lengthy text description within the cells in that worksheet. It would help every user understand the table, not only assistive technology users. Input the description of tables directly in specific cells instead of text boxes that are manually added to the workbook. Text boxes are floating objects as they are not associated with any specific cells. They cannot be reached using the arrow keys on keyboard. Assistive technologies cannot tell that its location in the grid of cells. Moreover, you may use the alt text to refer assistive technology users to the description of tables. On the screen now, you will find reference materials about how to describe complex images, including tables. You may also refer to the text version of the reference list below the video player on the web page. Ensure sufficient color contrast in tables. When formatting a table, it is suggested to choose the table style with sufficient color contrast. Ensure sufficient color contrast between text and its associated cell background in tables. Do not use color-on-color background and text in tables, such as light blue text on dark blue background. Please revisit section 2.4 for greater detail of the examples of the checkers. Do not use color as the sole visual cue in tables. People with color blindness, low contrast sensitivity, or some visual impairment may have difficulty distinguishing between certain colors. Therefore, using color as the only visual cue to convey important information could hinder understanding of the table content. To enhance accessibility, use multiple visual cues to present information to enhance accessibility to a wider range of users. For example, red text is used to represent compulsory lecture, and green text is used to represent optional lecture in the table. However, some users such as people with color blindness may be unable to differentiate the red text and the green text. Users who print out the slides in grayscale may also be unable to differentiate the colors. To improve accessibility, we may use multiple visual cues, such as color, symbols, and text, to indicate compulsory lecture and optional lecture in the table, respectively. Charts and graphs formatting. We often generate charts from specified datasets in Excel. Charts and graphs can visualize the dataset to facilitate data interpretation and analysis. Visualizing the data would help some users to understand the data. Charts and graphs can serve different purposes in teaching and learning activities, such as research data analysis, class project presentation, and course assessment gradebook. Regarding accessible use of charts and graphs, we would need to be aware of 6 things. Formatting the original datasets as accessible tables. Being mindful of the display locations of charts and associated data tables in the workbook. Giving unique and informative name for each chart. Not using color as the sole visual cue in charts. Formatting chart elements and layout. And providing alternative text, alt text, for charts. Format the original datasets as accessible tables. Visualizing the data as charts and graphs would help some users to understand the data. However, because charts are rich in visual information, they would inherently present accessibility barriers to some users, such as users with visual impairment and assistive technologies users. It would hinder equal opportunities of participation in the teaching and learning activities. When the charts and graphs are generated from specified datasets in Excel, it is important to apply accessible formatting to both the charts and graphs and the associated dataset as an accessible table. To format the dataset as an accessible table, please refer to Section 5 Table Formatting for greater detail. Be mindful of the display locations of charts and associated data tables in the workbook. When possible, position the charts and graphs close to the associated data tables on the same worksheet to facilitate navigation and user's reference. Data tables are associated with specific range of cells. But charts and tables are not associated with any specific cells. They are examples of items that float on worksheets. They cannot be reached using the 4 arrow keys on keyboard. Assistive technologies may be unable to tell the location of each chart and graph within the grid of cells. It is suggested to use hyperlinks to indicate the locations of the chart and data table that are associated. It can facilitate navigation. Give unique and informative name for each chart. Each formatted chart is named Chart 1, Chart 2, and so on by default in the order the charts are created. The names of all the formatted charts are shown in the name box near the formula bar. If there are many charts in the workbook, the default names such as Chart 1 and Chart 2 might not be informative enough to let users differentiate and refer to a particular chart quickly. Therefore, after formatting a chart, give a unique and informative name for each formatted chart. These unique chart names could help screen reader users identify and locate each chart more easily. Unique chart names are important and can help all readers locate the chart more easily. To rename a formatted chart and graph, select the formatted chart. Enter the new name in the name box. Then, press the Enter key on the keyboard to apply it. Note that the chart name should be unique and descriptive. Do not include a space in the chart name. And the chart name should not duplicate other existing names in the workbook. Because charts and graphs are not associated with any specific cells, and they are like floating on the worksheet, do not use cell range references to be the chart name. Do not use color as the sole visual cue in charts. People with color blindness, low contrast sensitivity, or some visual impairment may have difficulty distinguishing between certain colors. Therefore, using color as the only visual cue to convey important information could hinder understanding of the charts and graphs. To enhance accessibility, use multiple visual cues to present information to enhance accessibility to a wider range of users. Examples of such visual cues are color, pattern fill, line style, such as solid or dotted lines, data labels, text description, and/or legend. For example, use color, pattern, and text labels to identify each pie section of pie charts. Put the text labels near or directly on the corresponding pie section to enable readers to understand the chart clearly. Do not put all the text labels below the chart. Format chart elements in layout. Depending on the types of charts and graphs and the datasets, it is recommended to make use of different chart elements to help users understand the charts and graphs. Basic elements to be included are generally the chart title, axis titles, data labels, and legend. It provides multiple visual cues to present information to enhance accessibility to a wider range of users. It is also recommended to adjust the layout of the charts and graphs for clear reading. Layout that appears too crowded would become barriers to many users, such as some people with cognitive disabilities. To add different chart elements, select the chart, then go to the Chart Design tab. Go to the Add Chart Element command. Select the required items from the drop-down menu of the Add Chart Element command, such as the chart title, data labels, and legend. To adjust the layout of the charts and graphs, select the chart, then go to the Chart Design tab. Go to the Quick Layout command. You may further resize and relocate the white space within the charts and graphs where appropriate. You may also select a preferred layout from the gallery in the Chart Design tab. Overall, you may go to the Format tab and the Format pane to modify the design in greater detail. Make sure to check and fix the color contrast of the different chart elements. We may make use of software applications to check color contrast. There is a number of color contrast checkers that are free of charge. An example is the Color Contrast Analyzer from TPGI. You may check the color contrast of the chart design and modify the colors. Please also revisit section 2.4 for greater detail of the examples of the checkers. Provide alternative text, alt text, for charts. The following is an example of alt text of a chart. A pie chart presenting the weighting of the scores of the 4 assessment tasks toward the course grade. The following is an example showing how the built-in screen reader in Mac, that is VoiceOver, would read aloud the alt text of a chart. Screen reader demo.
Excel. Course Assessment Graphical version 5 updated the 25th of May 2023. A pie chart presenting the weighting of the scores of the 4 assessment tasks toward the course grade. Chart. Pie.
End of screen reader demo. To insert alt text of a chart, select and right-click on the chart, select View Alt Text from the shortcut menu. Input the alt text of the chart in the alt text pane. Here are some tips for drafting the alt text. Use punctuation such as periods to end the alt text. Otherwise, screen readers may mix up the alt text and the content in the worksheet that follows. It may confuse the users. Be aware that hyperlinks in the alt text cannot be activated or presented by linked text. Do not write detailed and lengthy description of charts and graphs as alt text. Provide the lengthy text description within the cells in that worksheet. It would help every user understand the charts and graphs, not only assistive technology users. Input the description of charts and graphs directly in specific cells instead of text boxes that are manually added to the workbook. Text boxes are floating objects as they are not associated with any specific cells. They cannot be reached using the arrow keys on keyboard. Assistive technologies cannot tell that its location in the grid of cells. Moreover, you may use the alt text to refer assistive technology users to the description of charts and graphs. On the screen now, you will find reference materials about how to describe complex images, including charts and graphs. You may also refer to the text version of the reference list below the video player on the web page. Worksheet layout. To enhance the accessibility of worksheet layout, we would need to be aware of three things: leaving single blank row between items on the same worksheet, adjusting row height or column width to achieve formatting, and indicating the end of information in each worksheet. Leave single blank row between items on the same worksheet. If possible, sometimes it is good to divide complicated data and items into separate and simpler items on the same worksheet. It could facilitate users to understand and manage the data. If there are many items, consider providing an index of the locations and description of the list of items on each worksheet for users' reference, such as the item titles and cell references, and use hyperlinks to let users jump between items. Define each item using the built-in formatting tool. Define names for the cell ranges. Provide a unique and descriptive title for each item right above that item. Merge the cells that contain the title and correspond to the item width. Center the title within those merged cells. Use a single blank row to separate each item, such as table and chart, on the same worksheet. Do not use multiple blank rows to create a visual appearance of a larger space between each item. If there are multiple blank rows, assistive technologies users might misunderstand that it has come to the end of the content on that worksheet. Adjust row height or column width to achieve formatting. Adjust the row height of the single blank row to create your desired amount of space between each item, instead of using multiple blank rows. It could reduce confusion to assistive technologies users. At the same time, it can preserve the visual effect of a blank space for item separation for sighted users' reference. To adjust row height or column width, click and drag across the column or row borders in the column or row heading cells for the columns or rows that you want to adjust. Indicate the end of information in each worksheet. Add a notification message of in column A, and the row immediately after the last row of the information in each worksheet. For example, end of worksheet. This notification can let all users, especially assistive technology users, know there is no further information in that worksheet. It helps save their time and effort. Workbook wrap-up. To wrap up the workbook, we would need to be aware of 7 things. Being mindful of inserting threaded comments. Hiding unused columns and rows. Being mindful of the use of freeze panes. Removing blank and unused worksheets. Creating an index page in Worksheet 1. Setting document languages. And editing the file information and properties. Be mindful of inserting threaded comments. We can insert threaded comments to cells. This can be helpful for collaborative work. An indicator would appear at the top right corner of the cell to notify the presence of a comment on that cell. When hovering the cursor over the cell, the comment box automatically pops up. However, this pop-up comment box may not be readily accessible to assistive technologies such as screen readers and keyboard control. If the information in comments is important, it is recommended to put the comments in a cell directly to enhance its accessibility to all users. To remove a comment, right-click on the cell and select Delete Comment. Hide unused columns and rows. By default, there are more than thousands blank columns and rows in each worksheet. Unused columns or rows around the end of all the content in a worksheet might be distracting to some readers, such as some people with cognitive disabilities. Consider hiding the unused rows or columns around the worksheet content. It could make the worksheet cleaner and prevent readers from wasting time and effort looking for any further content. To hide unused columns from the end of all content in the worksheet to the last default column in the worksheet, select the first column to hide. Select the rest of the default columns using the keyboard shortcut keys. Shift plus Control plus right arrow. Go to Home tab, Format, Columns, Hide. Or, right-click on any selected column, then, select Hide from the shortcut menu. To hide unused rows from the end of all content in the worksheet to the last default row in the worksheet, select the first row to hide. Select the rest of the default rows using the keyboard shortcut keys. Shift plus Control plus down arrow. Go to Home tab, Format, Rows, Hide. Or, right-click on any selected row, then, select Hide from the shortcut menu. Sometimes, you may want to hide one or several non-adjacent columns or rows. It can help select the interested content for both viewing on screen and printing. Note that the hidden columns and rows are not read by both sighted readers and screen reader users. If you hide the unused rows or columns, consider adding a note in the worksheet to notify users about any hidden rows or columns. Let users know how to unhide these rows or columns themselves in case they want to add new content to the worksheet. Be mindful of the use of freeze panes. Make use of the freeze panes function to keep specific rows and/or columns visible on screen and in place while users scroll and navigate the worksheet. Go to View tab. Select either freeze panes, freeze top row, or freeze first column. Note that the visual effects of freeze panes may not work for screen reader users. Even if you applied freezing on certain rows or columns, screen readers would not read aloud these frozen areas every time unless the users move their current locations to those frozen areas. If you applied any frozen column, row, or pane, consider adding a note in the worksheet to notify users about the frozen content. Let users know how to unfreeze them. Remove blank and unused worksheets. Remove blank and unused worksheets to minimize confusion to assistive technologies users. Select the worksheet to be removed. Go to Home tab, Delete Sheet. Or, right-click the tab of the worksheet to be removed, then select Delete from the shortcut menu. Create an index page in Worksheet 1. Provide an overview of the content in the whole Excel file in Worksheet 1, especially for file containing many items and complicated content. Briefly describe each worksheet. List out the item type, title, brief description, and location. Make use of hyperlinks to facilitate users to jump to particular item easily. Also notify users about any hidden rows or columns, or any frozen column, row, or pane. We can access a list of all defined names in the workbook. This information can be included in the index page in Worksheet 1 for users' reference to facilitate understanding and navigation. To generate a list of defined names, go to Formula tab, Use in Formulas. Select Paste List from the drop-down menu. An auto-generated list of all defined names and corresponding cell location references will appear. Set document languages. It is important to indicate the languages within the document for assistive technologies to identify and read properly. To set the document languages, select and highlight the text you want to set the language for. This could be the entire document, or just a particular part, depending on your situation. Go to Tools, Language. In the Language dialog pane, select the language you want to set. Select OK. Repeat the procedures if you need to set another language for other parts of text in the document. Edit file information and properties. Edit the file information, such as title, author, and keywords, of the document. It could facilitate users to identify and search the document. To edit the file information, go to File, Properties. Select Summary in the Properties dialog box. Edit the file information in the corresponding fields. For example, title and keywords. Keywords could make it easier for users to search for a file. For example, we can add the course code or keywords related to the Excel document. Accessibility check. Use built-in accessibility checker to fix potential issues. To run the built-in checker in Excel, go to Review tab, check accessibility. The built-in accessibility checker in Microsoft Excel can automatically detect some potential inaccessible designs of the document, such as merged cells in tables and missing alt text, and provide suggestions for fixing the potentially problematic areas. Make use of the commands in the Accessibility tab to fix the potentially problematic areas. You may consider keeping the accessibility checker running while you work around the workbook. It can notify you about potential inaccessibility issues and fix them as soon as possible. Note that passing the check does not necessarily guarantee full accessibility, but failing the check would mean there are some inaccessible features that needs to be addressed. Do not solely rely on the checker for accessible documents. Be aware of the limitations of the built-in accessibility checker. For example, the checker could not tell whether the information is conveyed using color alone. Try going through the document with screen readers. The following are examples of screen readers. VoiceOver on Mac, the built-in VoiceOver function in Mac. Narrator in Windows, the built-in VoiceOver function in Windows. NVDA, the screen reader that can be downloaded free of charge, available for computers running Microsoft Windows 7 SP1 and later. Test for any problems with when the document or the screen is magnified to around 200%. Also test whether the content is responsive to different screen size and mobile devices. File saving and sharing. Always save file with cell A1 of Worksheet 1 as the active cell. Screen readers would generally navigate each worksheet starting from cell A1, then cell by cell. When saving the Excel file, by default, Excel remembers the last worksheet and the last cell you are working on. When you open this Excel file next time, Excel will automatically orient to this cell. Therefore, before saving the Excel file, remember go to Worksheet 1 and select cell A1 for Excel to remember this last location. Then, when screen reader users open this file next time, screen readers will begin reading at cell A1 in Worksheet 1. Export Excel file as PDF with preserved accessibility tags. When exporting the Excel file as PDF in Mac, be sure to select the option Best for electronic distribution and accessibility. This option would retain the accessible features of the document. Do not use the Print to PDF or Best for Printing function. When exporting the Excel file as PDF in Windows, be sure to select Optimize for Standard instead of Optimize for Minimize Size. Then, be sure to select and check the command Document Structure Tags for accessibility. This option would retain the accessible features of the document. Further check the accessibility of this PDF and fix any potential issues.
Disclaimer. This video does not contain any business promotion elements. Software, programs, and operating systems are constantly and rapidly developing along with changing accessibility functions. Statements in this video about the functions of any software, programs, and operating systems may no longer represent the current status. The recommended practices in this video are not exhaustive or the best solutions for each situation. It is possible that the hyperlinks of the cited resources in this video might be edited or removed by the corresponding contributor after publication of this video.
References. You may find the full references on screen now. You may also refer to the text version of the reference list below the video player on the webpage. Acknowledgement. This project is funded by the UGC Special Grant for Strategic Development of Virtual Teaching and Learning. The first author, Gloria Ma, would like to acknowledge the support of the postdoctoral fellowship scheme offered by the Research Grants Council of Hong Kong. To cite this video, please follow the suggested citation. This work is licensed under Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike 4.0 International. For more guidelines on creating accessible digital educational materials and virtual learning environments, please refer to our Virtual Learning Accessibility Toolkit at https://vlaccessibilitytoolkit.hku.hk or download the full text in PDF from HKU Data Repository. You may scan the QR code on screen now to visit the database. You may also download the set of cheat sheets for quick reference and sharing. You are highly encouraged to watch the other videos in this ID Leaders Self-Learning series to enrich the knowledge of the basic concepts, practical tips, and resources of enhancing the accessibility of virtual teaching and learning. Here comes to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Let's begin our journey towards co-creating accessible virtual teaching and learning.